All right, Wiz, LangChain 1.0.
Woo!
It's easier than ever to engineer some agents. That's what I heard.
That's right.
So is it really that much easier?
Yeah. I think that it is.
And interestingly, like right off the bat, I think we can really start to tell the difference now between LangChain and LangGraph and when to choose one over the other. LangChain, as we'll see in the demo today, is actually going to be a lot easier to use than LangGraph, especially for folks that are just getting into it, just getting started. Is that right?
Absolutely 150% true.
And the rest of the ecosystem beyond LangChain that we've covered many times on this channel, LangGraph, LangSmith, these are all feeling pretty familiar still. Is that about right?
Yeah, I think things feel very familiar. You're definitely in ecosystem, as it were.
That's right.
I would say overall that it's something very close to home when we're in the other tool sets. So LangSmith and LangGraph feel very familiar. The big change is, LangChain has kind of turned into one unit of focus, which is dope.
Yeah. And, I mean, they just raised a ton of cash. So shout out to LangChain and the team growing. They do seem to be leading. Like my perspective on this is that they raised all this cash. They're coming out with their own agent builder. LangChain is starting to see this kind of abstraction. We'll see this today. We'll go into the details of how it's actually been abstracted above LangGraph. And then, really, we're kind of starting to see this differentiation between I'm kind of a hardcore developer. I'm kind of more on the let's get started easily side. And then there's the agent builders up here on the get started easy. The LangGraphs down here on the sort of control everything, and LangChain is right here now in the middle, kind of playing the perfect position heading into 2026. I'm very, very excited to see what this team does. What do you think is most interesting about this release from your perspective?
I mean, for me, it's kind of, I would say, like, it's finally putting some clarification, I would say, on when we should be using one versus the other for a really long time. It had been like, well, just use, and that's not bad. Obviously being flexible is good, but it feels like it feels that I'm going to summarize my thoughts like this.
Yeah.
It feels like I know when to use LangChain now.
Yeah.
It used to be like, I know when to use LCEL, right? But like,
That's right.
when am I ever using LangChain? And the answer was never.
And so,
but now it's like, okay, I get why you would want to, why potentially you would want to use LangChain.
And so in 2026, do you plan to use more LangChain after this release?
I don't. No, they've built the library for a different group of people. And that's awesome.
They built it for a specific set of folks. We're going to outline that today. That's right. Those folks don't include the Wiz. The Wiz prefers LangGraph.
You know what? I'm a LangGraph guy through and through, but LangChain is way more useful. Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, as we'll see, it's really become a lot easier to get started. So if you're looking to get into AI engineering, agent engineering, I think we should get in buzzword compliance, then we should maybe go ahead and start with not just the low code builders, but maybe introductory LangChain. Okay, let's go ahead and get into it. You ready to kick off today, Wiz?
I could be more ready.
All right, let's go. Let's kick it off. All right, thanks, Wiz. We'll see you back for some discussions and some demos. Guys, welcome everybody to Agent Engineering with LangChain V1.0. So we want to really focus this in on LangChain today. We're going to talk about the entire ecosystem, but we're going to show you how easy it is to build, ship, and share with LangChain now. We'll also break down exactly, if you stick with us for the next hour, let's sort of align ourselves to the session here. We'll break down exactly kind of the differences and how things have changed between LangChain and LangGraph, when to choose one open source framework over the other. Are you more of a beginner? You like the abstraction? That I would probably put myself in this category, or are you more hardcore on the engineering side like Wiz? Maybe this has a big impact on which one you choose to start building agents with. This creation of agents is a lot more streamlined. The sort of core abstraction is this create agent abstraction. And this is kind of reflected by LangChain, this development of the industry that we've all kind of agreed on this core pattern. This middleware that they've built, it's interesting, the directionality of the middleware given LangChain and LangGraph and their relationship now. We'll talk about how that enables us to build even more complex stuff without going to LangGraph. And then the LangSmith platform has replaced, let's say, the LangGraph platform. And we've just gotten a lot more clear. Again, clarity, I think, is the key word here for this release, where we should go when we're ready to get into production with our prototype. And of course, we'll build, ship, and share an agent, maybe a multi-agent system. Maybe we'll throw a human in the loop. Maybe we'll do some RAG. You'll see when we get to demo time with the Wiz. So let's talk LangChain. Let's talk LangGraph, LangSmith, and how to create these agents. V1.0. Okay, LangChain, as they've been saying for a while, since V0.1, they're kind of this general agent building platform. I think they really adopted this agent terminology in this release. This is sort of previous the developing applications powered by LLMs. We'll see if we can just replace that with agent as we dig into the core pattern at play here. LangChain 1.0, this is the first major version release. Again, shout out to the team. They're doing really, really cool things over at LangChain. And now they have 3 open source frameworks that we want to think about as back-end AI engineers. They've got LangChain, which allows us to quickly get started. They've got LangGraph, which allows us to control every step. And of course, deep agents. Now, this is sort of an in-between abstraction. It's kind of built to take the LangChain level agent to the next level. We've covered this recently on the channel. We're not going to dig super deep into that. Check that out if you'd like to learn more about the deep agent framework. For today, though, it's important to focus on the fact that these are all agent frameworks. And why that's important is because this core abstraction is the key. As Harrison said long ago, the real power comes when you combine LLMs with other sources of computation or knowledge. And this idea that if we simply use an LLM to call tools in a loop, this is the simplest form of agent. In other words, when we give an LLM access to tools, we call it an agent. This is the core pattern, the core abstraction. When we make a request to an LLM, it's going to do some reasoning. It might decide it knows the answer. When we give that LLM the ability to take some sort of action, specifically when we're talking in an agentic context, we're going to give that LLM access to tools. The results, the things that we observe from the output of those tools, the information that provides, that gets put back into context. When we do this in this loop here, the LLM itself, boom, now it's an agent. Okay, we call it an agent. And this core loop is called the create agent abstraction in LangChain, but fundamentally, this is what the entire AI engineering community has agreed upon as the definition of agent. Another way we can think about this is we're doing reasoning and then we're taking action. We're doing react, which since many years ago gives us better results than if we just reason or if we just take action over and over. At AI Makerspace, we like to define an agent as a system that can leverage or emulate reasoning to make dynamic decisions in an application flow. And the way we can think about LangChain v1.0 is it makes it easier than ever to build these application flows. From the release blog, we've been listening over the past 3 years. We've heard consistent feedback. LangChain's abstractions were sometimes too heavy. The package surface area had grown unwieldy, and developers wanted more control over the agent loop without dropping down to raw LLM calls. Some struggled with customization, and this thoughtful refinement is what they came up with. Too heavy abstractions, too much package surface area, more control wanted, but without going full control. And this is from one of their customers, from Rippling. We rely heavily on the durable runtime that LangGraph provides. Sort of that robust ability to do stuff while the app is running. And the new pre-built create agent and middleware makes it far more flexible, more like that durable runtime in LangGraph. So there's 3 things that we want to keep in mind. We have that create agent abstraction, sort of the fastest way to build any agent now. We've got this standardization of content blocks. We'll talk more about this. This is going to allow us to be provider agnostic across different tools that we decide to use. And then generally a streamlined package surface area. So create agent is very simple. In fact, we already covered it. The setup is, here's the LLM, here's the tools. Run them in a loop to achieve goals. That's it. And this should look pretty similar based on our discussion so far today. Now, what's interesting is that the create agent abstraction now uses LangGraph under the hood. But wait, Wiz, I thought that LangGraph used LangChain under the hood. Or was that ever true? Now it's the other way around?
Yeah, it is. So it did. So it used to be that, you're correct, first of all. But it used to be the case that we had LangGraph depended on LangChain due to LCEL. Now it's been reversed. LangGraph is now a dependency for LangChain, as in, LangChain is going to leverage LangGraph under the hood, which is great because that's how everyone's been kind of using these tools already, right? I know myself and a lot of others that are building with LangChain. When we talked about LangChain, we're really talking about LangGraph as the core components, right? We're building graphs. We're leveraging that, that kind of automated graph construction. That's it.
Okay.
Now that's just been kind of made official, let's say.
So what's the role of LCEL now exactly? Is it still doing heavy lifting for us under there, or not so much?
The idea, in my impression, is that we don't need to bother ourselves with LCEL any longer. We're going to just use graphs. Now, under the hood, I'm sure they're still leveraging the hell out of LCEL. It's still very useful, but that's neither here nor there. In terms of how we use it, we are just going to do easy peasy basic stuff with LangChain. We don't need to bother with building weird chains or tying components together. We're going to use our create agents as a way to interact.
Okay. But when we want full control, when we want to build with LangGraph, we'll still need to leverage the different tools in the toolkit at whatever layer of abstraction. But as we continue to do, it seems like almost every week on this channel, we've kind of entered the meta zone again. We don't need to go back down there unless we really want to go back down there and get that fine-grained control over exactly what we're building. And that's going to be more and more geared. I think this is the common theme of the release for me, towards production environments, less towards prototypes that people just want to put together.
That's right. Yeah, I think that's a good. The core of the idea is, it should be a lot cleaner to use now. Period.
Boom.
Boom.
Let's see how we can even customize it further here by looking into a little bit of middleware. We'll see you back in a sec.
Oh,
Liz.
yeah.
Okay. So the middleware piece, this is kind of actually a dirty word a lot of times, this middleware idea. But like this is kind of interesting that they've kind of intermediated that lower level LangGraph with the higher level LangChain through the use of this middleware. And I think it was really interesting to listen to the team talk about how important it was for their early customers to be able to customize their applications. Today, we would say customize the agents, customize the agent loop. And this was happening a ton in production. And the idea of like putting a human in the loop, I think Harrison had a great line where, he said you can use the input command in Python to put a human in the loop with a simple prototype. Doesn't quite work that way in production. And so this idea of, again, intermediating, or for instance, we want to provide a summary of the current context from all these loops we've been running through to the LLM, kind of a pseudo memory thing here. We can do that simply with this middleware approach. And of course, we can do things like actually start to care about exactly what's going in and exactly what's coming out. More of a kind of guardrail feel when we do things like PII redaction. So all of these pieces of middleware are built in, and I would expect we'll see many more opportunities to customize our agent loop and our agent loops, especially as they stack on top of each other in the future. And then, of course, you can build custom middleware. And so they kind of built these hooks where you could kind of be before the agent, you could kind of be after the agent, you could kind of be before just the input to the model or after what's coming out of the model. So that gives very guardrails feel right there. And you could, of course, provide custom tools and provide specific details of the way you want to be able to call models. Let's say add additional instructions, etc. So this idea of kind of custom middleware will allow us to customize our agents seemingly a little bit easier. So that's dope. And then finally, there's this content blocks piece, in addition to streamlining generally, where we can change the model providers without breaking streams, without breaking UIs, without breaking memory stores. A lot of times models will have kind of different things they expect to see. They'll have specific ways they expect to see inputs, specific ways they provide outputs. And sometimes those don't jive exactly with each other, even if everybody's kind of pseudo leveraging the system user assistant pattern. But LangChain kind of is taking care of all of this at that kind of doing the translation for us between model providers. And this seems like it's going to be, again, just something that makes it a lot easier for folks to build, ship, and share. So, Wiz, let's discuss this a little bit, because I'm not sure that I've got a firm grasp on all the details of this content blocks thing. Is it about like standardizing the way agents talk to each other, or is it about tools beyond LLMs? What's your sort of interpretation of this standardization of content blocks and how wide this standardization really goes?
I mean, it's just about making sure that, you know, I don't know if I'm going to call it like specifically a protocol, and maybe I'm incorrect to do so.
Kind of feels like a set of rules for doing something, but I'm just,
Yeah.
you know.
I would say like standardization in the framework has been a big focus, right? So instead of having all of these like weird I'm going to say like not useful abstractions, you know, but in very specific abstractions, as we move to a world where we have, you know, like we need to standardize because the way we think about context is different in 2025 than it was in 2020, whatever, right? When LangChain first popped on the scene.
Yeah, we got to
what that
engineer it.
means is like, we don't need, the way we're thinking about context has grown a lot, right? It's not just used in these 2 or 3 places that, and it doesn't have to be so prescriptive from the framework side on what is or isn't considered context or how we should interact with it one, you know, in one place versus another place all of these things, all of this standardization serves to help us make a more useful, you know, system that exists in current year, as opposed to, you know, LangChain had kind of felt relic-y, right? No, not LangGraph, not the work they're doing. They're keeping up with everything, and they're building all of these new agents and new services with their tools. So they're staying up to date in that regard. But some of the tooling started to look a little bit outdated, feel a little bit outdated, and I think that this kind of change, where we're moving more toward the just Pythonic implementation, right? But with a lot of extra bells and whistles. So all that to say, they're important because we need to standardize content across all of the LangX ecosystem.
Yeah, I guess they call it the provider agnostic spec for model outputs. So like that's the TLDR on standard content blocks. So like, is that, it's not just agents talking to each other, but that is an important piece. Like, of course, MCP and A2A and all these protocols coming out focused on this. This is what it feels like to me. Like, can you concretize this a bit for everybody beyond like agents talking to each other? Why do we need a provider agnostic spec for model outputs exactly?
Well, think about it this way, right? LangChain serves a big ecosystem, you know, of many different providers. So there has to be some in framework standardization, right? Without it, you know, you couldn't use Anthropic versus you couldn't all of this stuff, right? Which is like super cringe. So the thing I would the thing I would point you to is like, we want to be able to have the same experience no matter who we're working with. And in order to do that, you have to, in some sense, in some sense, you have to make this concession, right?
Okay. So unless we were building apps with a ton of different models, though, this is probably not something that we'll notice a whole lot. You know, especially building simple single or 2 agents with the same.
Oh yeah, no, we're not going to notice it a ton.
Okay. Gotcha.
So and if you are, you still won't notice it. That's the whole point, right? Like, the point of this all is to not be noticed, right? It's to allow you to focus more on doing the worky and less on contorting contorting context to fit certain, certain predefined or very prescriptive formats. It's allowed to make you a little bit freer in terms of where we are, right?
Nice. Okay. All right. So then let's get into LangGraph for a moment, just to draw the distinction, and we'll see you back for the next discussion. Okay. So overall, we've got a simplified LangChain. We got LangChain.agents, .messages, .tools, .chat models, and .embeddings. Feels pretty clean. Cleaner than before. No LangChain core, LangChain community, all that stuff, I think, is going to be in LangChain Classic now. So on to LangGraph. Well, LangGraph, first of all, has just not really changed a whole lot. Their top level on the way that they talk about LangGraph has changed a little bit. So LangGraph from the docs is a low-level orchestration framework. This is where we're sort of, being encouraged to identify this low-levelness orchestration framework and runtime for building, managing, and deploying not just stateful now, but long-running stateful agents. Little hat tip to deep agents right there. LangGraph still specifies these sort of state machines as graphs. And again, LangGraph, the graphs, they're all about tracking state. Whatever's happening when I'm there, at that time, in that place, on the graph. The cool thing about LangGraph, especially from a product development perspective, is that if product and engineering can come together to sort of imagine what the app should look like and whiteboard this thing, diagram it out, we can literally draw the graph kind of one-to-one. It's not an event-driven thing. It is a graph-driven thing. And so these really fundamental units, sort of lower level units than create agent, are still those classic graph units, nodes and edges. And so while we can think of nodes like we have classically as seeing runnables in there as just simple tool calls, we might actually go up a layer and be able to think about every node in the graph potentially being another graph in the form of maybe the node is just a create agent node, right? And so now we can sort of start to easily even think when we build in LangGraph natively, what are the ways I can leverage the LangChain abstraction to go to the next level in my complexity? Okay, so Wiz, let's talk about abstraction for a second here. There seem to be three fundamental abstractions here. There's the agent loop, which I think is probably made of nodes and edges under the hood. But then there's nodes and there's edges, the classics. This is the way you think about building agents when you build with LangGraph. This is the way we can kind of think about building anything we want. What else are we missing if we have a good handle on nodes, edges, and agent loops? And will you be building graphs with create agent nodes?
I mean, I had no intention to. No. Okay. I mean, I might. Why not? You certainly could. More than anything else, but I probably won't. No. The thing about those core abstractions is like they are the core conceptual abstractions, right? And I think that's extremely important. Now, that doesn't mean that they are the be all end all of like the actual literal code abstraction, which is going to be, ever so slightly different. I mean, there is no node object, right? There is no edge object. They're functions or they're ways that we think about things. And so from that perspective, I would say the core abstractions are what we're used to: Python functions, the start node, the end node. These are the things that we're most leveraging in LangGraph, and we'll continue to most leverage in LangGraph, as much as we may want to do something even fancier. We just don't need to. It's just that simple.
Okay.
The core conceptual abstractions, though, absolutely same thing. Instead of agent loop, though, maybe we'll say cyclic graph, right? Or graph with cycles, because we don't really need. There's not like a specific there's not like a specific agent loop in LangGraph as it were, right? We can build cycles, and those cycles can have loops, but I think that's meaningfully different.
And I suppose loop is an unrequired additional specifier on agent these days.
That's right.
Okay. All right, cool. Then let's actually just keep moving, and we'll discuss LangSmith in just a moment.
Let's go.
All right, so LangSmith is now, this is the top line we're hearing about LangSmith, covered a lot today, is here to provide tools for developing, debugging, and deploying. In short, going to production. In short, moving to prod. We can, of course, do tracing, do evaluation, test different prompts out, and now instead of LangGraph platform, the LangSmith platform is handling deployments for us. So we have kind of a nice diagram from the docs here where we can think about building, deploying, observing, and evaluating. This is not too dissimilar from different loops we've seen recently on this channel, including, Claude Agent SDK, and, kind of this working at the next layer and seeing really end to end. But, we want to be able to use this kind of end-to-end ecosystem to do this. That's what this is all about. Do it in the cleanest possible way. And LangSmith helps us to kind of do these highlighted pieces here. So again, not a ton has changed with LangGraph or LangSmith. Wiz, did you see any changes before we get into our demo today behind the scenes? We still looking at traces, looking at runs, doing evals. We're deploying too, but other than that, any real UI changes or anything you've noticed?
I mean, no, I don't think so. It's very reminiscent of, what we've seen before. It is obviously a little bit more featured. The deployments, piece is quite good. There's no more LangGraph platform. It's all LangSmith now. There's all kinds of new awesome, bits and bobs in there, but there's nothing like unfamiliar about the experience, which is obviously, dope.
Okay. So you finally stopped saying LangServe and started saying LangGraph platform, and now you have to change it again.
Yeah, that's right.
LangSmith platform. Okay.
That's right. So, we're straight back. Straight back.
Here we go. And we're back. So we're gonna do create agent here, Wiz. You're gonna build some agents. You're gonna smith some langs, maybe even get a deployment going. Show us around the new ecosystem 1.0 with the Wiz. Over to you.
Yeah. Okay, so first things first, let's take a look at some code. We're gonna look at the code first, and then we're going to look at everything else. So we'll just open the README, so no spoilers. And we'll need to zoom in a lot for this because there's many lines of code. So the first thing we're going to do is, we don't need to check out a README, but we're going to look at the construction of this folder. Now, this folder is going to have this SRC folder. This is going to be where a lot of the actual logic is implemented. And then we'll have this using LangChain 1.0 notebook, which is going to kind of talk through some of the key components. Now, this is going to be using, right? So you'll see that we have this build simple agent imported from our src.agent. We can use it. You know, what is the weather in San Francisco? It's currently rainy. I mean, it makes sense. You know, it's rainy often. And then we have our first instance of what's called middleware. Now, that middleware is kind of where we're injecting all of these neato bonito things, right? So this is stuff like your human in the loop pause. This is stuff like your, you know, RAG. Everything like that is going to be in the you know, middleware section, I guess we'll call it. The reason we do this is because create agent is everything. So let's look at how we would use human in the loop. Well, first thing, what do? We have some kind of thread, right, that we're going to start. This is similar if you've used you know, any kind of responses API shenanigans before, or have used you know, LangGraph particularly often. But what you're going to see is that we start this. Please use the magic calculator to add 5 and 5. We get this. We stream all the events. We get no events. Interesting. Well, the reason we get no events is because, you know, we have a human in the loop pause. So then after we get no events, we go back to the human in the loop. We construct a resume payload, and then we resume. We say approved. And then we go through the rest of our flow. You know, we issue our command. If you're used to LangGraph, you will have seen command before. But the idea is that we're now able to say, okay, we're going to, you know, we found this interrupt. We're going to go ahead and resume that thread. We're going to say approved. And then we're going to use our, you know, we're going to use our actual magic calculator tool. So we get 5 plus 5. And then we multiply it by a random magic factor to get 20. So the magic calculator tool, always a banger. Basically a bad calculator. But I like the word magic, so it's in the notebook. There you go. Next, we have RAG. Build RAG agent. Now, these are not LangChain abstractions. These are the ones we've built. So you can imagine what it does. It is RAG, but for, you know, for LangChain. Classic, you know. When should I use LangChain versus LangGraph? Write a Shakespearean sonnet about that. When language flows like rivers swift and bright, and words must dance upon the tongue with all. I don't know what this means, but you know, for graphs and depth, let LangGraph, and then LangChains for language pure. Sure, sounds good. So what does this look like under the hood if we go into that SRC file and say we go into our agent.py file? Well, what we're going to see is we're going to see that these are all just create agent with different modifiers. So our build simple agent is going to be our get weather tool and our magic calculator tool. And you can see all of the tools here. You know, basically this is just randomly choosing weather. This is just multiplying everything by 2, you know, behind the scenes. The idea is that this is very simple stuff, right? This is usual tool usage in LangChain. The only thing we're doing now is, instead of like making an agent executor, instead of making a, you know, any of these kind of more complex or annoying, you know, patterns that we used to have to use, we're now able to instead just use create agent. We give it a model, we give it some tools, and we give it a system prompt. So what about our human in the loop agent? Surely that's more complicated. Well, we do have to set up some middleware, and that middleware is the human in the loop middleware. It's going to interrupt on magic calculator. And then when we create our agent, we simply add the middleware. There you go. And then we add a check pointer. This check pointer lets us interact with the actual agent after it's been kicked off, right? So we persist the state once it's been interrupted instead of just discarding the state. So this is what lets us go back to a run that we had. But this is it. Like, this is nothing, right? I mean, it's just create agent again. We give it a model, some tools. We have our system prompt like normal, and then we have some middleware, right? And though our system prompt says you must ask permission before doing math, this actually doesn't have a huge impact, right? Because programmatically, once we notice that we're going to call magic calculator, we interrupt the graph, right? So this is not something this is not something that's handled, by the LLM making a dynamic decision, right? This is just code. When we see the magic calculator tool use, we interrupt. We wait for human feedback. If you wanted to add something like MCP, this is exactly how you do it with middleware. Let's see how we add something like RAG. Well, we're going to go ahead and for RAG, we're going to add an additional RAG tool. And that's then going to be added as a tool. Done. Okay. Easy, right? RAG is now relegated to a tool forevermore. We no longer think about RAG as its own specific construct, which is dope, by the way. Okay. Next, we're going to build a multi-agent system. This is probably going to be very complicated. So we have our researcher, which is going to leverage create agent, and our writer, which is going to leverage create agent. And then we're going to wrap our researcher and our writer in tools, or as tools, wrap them as tools. And then when we create our supervisor agent, we're just going to go ahead and include the supervisor, the agents as tools, with create agent again. This is the dream. We have one thing we do all the time, which is create agent. And we compose things into create agent. Now, there are a ton of different middleware options that we could use. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to stop sharing this screen and start sharing our web browser. And we're going to look at something a little bit more fun, which is, boom, here we go. We're just going to go ahead and go to LangChain and go to our built-in middleware, right? And see all of these middlewares that we have available to us. All of these: shell tool, context editing, tool call limit, summarization, PII detection. We have so many built-in middleware, but also, of course, we can build our own middleware, right? So we can build, just like this is a LangGraph graph, right? We can build a node and have that node hook in on different events: before agent, before model, after agent, right? And you can see this is just, whenever we say node in LangGraph, we mean like some kind of Python function. So we can just inject these, right? We can also do this wrapper pattern, which is exactly the same thing, but the boilerplate's a little bit longer. That's it. Middleware is basically our way to sneak into the execution or the underlying graph at different set points. If you want more flexibility than this, if you're like, well, maybe I don't want it just before agent, maybe I want it after the user submits a query and after I look at the query and get my first tool called, and then I want to have a pause. In that case, I mean, we can just go straight into LangGraph, right? Not that difficult at all. Let's look at something else that's neat. So I'm going to go back to my repository, this time on GitHub, which is important. We want our files that we looked at in our IDE to be pushed to GitHub, and we want to have this LangGraph.json. Now, this LangGraph.json looks very familiar, right? We can run this locally through our terminal. And the way we would do that is with the classic command that we've seen many times before, which is that, LangGraph dev, in this case, UV run LangGraph dev. All of that's inconsequential, though, because the real thing we want from this is we want this to be exposed, just like any other LangGraph.json, when we're using what was formerly called LangGraph platform, but is now just LangSmith, because we have this new deployments window in LangSmith. So first of all, if we go to our tracing projects, we can see our LangChain 1.0 guide, and we can see like the normal stuff, right? So this is just like normal tracing. Okay, we get it. No one's confused here. You know what I mean? Like this is typical tracing. We get this for free by setting the API key. Okay, I mean it used to be pretty cool. You know, it's less cool now. You can see me, activating the thread from the human in the loop. So this is the resume for the human in the loop, right? And we can see that it looks different on our in our trace window. Okay, we get it, right? But this new deployment piece is going to let us, first of all, in the background, let me just run LangGraph dev, right? And then what I can do is show you Studio, right? So here's Studio, Classic Studio. I can see my different models, my RAG agent, my multi-agent, and my human in the loop agent. You know, and I can do things like add a message and say things like, what is, 3 plus 3, and then submit that. And we're going to see some execution. 3 plus 3 equals 6. And then we have a human in the loop. Pause that's happening, right? We have to pause. We're going to need to pass in a message that lets us continue. You get the idea, right? This is LangGraph Studio, great tool. However, once we've done this, we've played with our model, we've determined it's great. We can now go to the deployments tab in LangSmith, which is just right here if we were going from Studio. And then we can click New Deployment. And in New Deployment, we can select the repo we want to deploy. We can give it a name. Let's call it like test aim 1. And then what branch we should key off of. And then what is our config file. You know, in this case, just we've named it what the default is, which is langgraph.json. We can also have it automatically update deployment based on our pushes to that branch, meaning whenever we commit to main, this is going to rerun and rebuild a deployment. We can give it some tags if we wanted to. We can choose our development options. Now, this does require you to have LangSmith Plus. So this is like I think it's $40 a month to get access to this single click deploy. But once you do, you can go ahead and make it shareable. You can add your API keys, like your OpenAI API key. Just make sure to set it to secret. Technically, all things will be stored as secrets, but we want to be extra super sure so we don't make any mistakes. If we had any specific install commands, we could go ahead and do this, which is adding specific install and build commands. So this is only for the JS versions of LangChain, which we're not using. And then we, of course, have an associated tracing project. So once we do this, just let me verify that I've done this correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add my OpenAI API key, right? OpenAI, oh my goodness, API key. And then we're going to make that a secret. And then we're going to go ahead and paste our API key in, which you can't see. Nice. And then we're going to go ahead and hit submit. And what this is going to do now is it's just going to submit a job to deploy. And you can see, just like normal, like any other one-click deploy platform, we're going to get told what's happening. Right now it's just in the queue. Then we're going to be told it's building. Then we're going to be told the agent server is launching. All of this. There we go. Now we can look at this. We can check out our build logs if we want to watch logs as soon as they start flowing through. Isn't this fun? This is the idea of LangSmith deploy, right? We can go from that local deployment all the way to having this deployed. Now, something to keep in mind, right? To be super crystal clear, this is just an API that's being deployed. This is not a front end, right? So this is not a replacement for something like Vercel. This is just deploying that API backend. You will still need to figure some other deployment for your front end, like Vercel. But now you can deploy your project through LangSmith and then hook into it with your Vercel front end and have a very minorly better time. Very, very minorly, but still a better time. With that, though, I think I've probably cruised a little bit over my time. I'm going to pass us back to Dr. Greg But before I do, I'm going to ask you to like and subscribe. We're here every Wednesday at this time. I think we're going to take 2 breaks this year because the streams might fall like on holidays in North America. But other than that, we're here every Wednesday, rain, shine, sickness, health. So there you go. Back to Dr. Greg.
Okay, Wiz, I want to go ahead and just ask you one thing. I think people are asking in the chat as well. So, I mean, LangChain, we get this question all the time. We've gotten it all year 2025. Is it still the GOAT of open source agent frameworks?
I think it's even more the GOAT. Like, I'm going to say
goated. Okay, 1 point. I think so too.
If you're getting started or you're going to production or et cetera, if you're in a position that's not just I'm going to build this myself, right? Like in Python or whatever, like you should just use the LangX ecosystem at this point. You can use whatever else you want. It's going to be similar, but like you're never. I recently have started realizing a better way to frame things is not, is it the best? Okay. Instead, is it bad? And the answer is no. Okay. Because you could use Pydantic, you could use Llama Index, you could use whatever, right? Those things are also designed well and largely work. But if you're asking for a recommendation, I'm going to say LangChain. I'm going to say LangGraph in 2025, even late 2025. And are you making the wrong choice by choosing LangGraph? I believe that the answer is no in almost every situation. And I don't think that's true of many of the other libraries.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So is it a bad idea to use LangGraph, LangChain? No. Okay. So Wiz, just stay up here with me. I just want to end where this series began, which is with their announcement to build the platform for agent engineering. I want to start inviting anybody that has questions to throw them directly into the YouTube live chat. So they raised 125 milli. Okay, here's what they said, Wiz. They said, the core ideas when we had made the first commit to the LangChain package 3 years ago still hold true today. The real power comes from, here's what they say now, turning LLM apps into agents with access to data and APIs. As we saw earlier, Harrison said the real power. He's a real power guy. I love that. The real power comes when you combine LLMs with other sources. We saw they used to talk about themselves as applications that require context and reasoning, and now it's just agents. Now we've abstracted it all up. Now, okay, new term alert here. Okay, today's reality is that agents are easy to prototype and hard to ship to production. That's because any input or change to an agent can create a host of unknown outcomes. Building reliable agents requires a new approach, one that combines product engineering and data science. Ho! We call this agent engineering, the iterative process of refining non-deterministic LLM systems into reliable experience. Besides LangChain, Wiz, what do we need to know heading into 2026 about this whole space? I don't even know what to call it anymore. LangX ecosystem, if you know it in, out, upside down, it's probably a good starting place. But what advice would you have for people out there trying to get into agent engineering today?
It's it's an oldie but a goodie. I'm just gonna stick to it. And for some of you who haven't heard it before, maybe hearing it is good for your health. You should build with these tools. You should build something with it. You're going to learn what you need to know when you build an application and you see it fail, and you see it not do something you want it to do, blah, 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 right? That's how you learn. That's how you learn what you need. Otherwise, it's just standards. I mean, look through the LangChain docs. Those are a lot of the really common patterns. That's why they're in their docs, right?
Yeah.
Look
yeah.
at the way that other companies are talking about agents, right? Look how Anthropic talks about Claude Code. I mean, these are the same kinds of patterns that we're seeing everywhere, and I think that is, we're a very patterns first, kind of community, right?
That's right.
And we're going to suggest you to learn those patterns. If you want to use a tool that we like, hey, dope. But if you want to use some other tool, as long as you're keeping in mind what the patterns are that you're supposed to be using, this is things like memory. This is things like having some designated workflow or work stream that you're working through for your agent. This is stuff like guardrails, right? As long as you have these patterns in mind, you can use whatever tools you want. I mean, people are building agents in assembly, right? People are building agents in SOLangs, you do whatever you need to, but start with the core fundamental patterns, which you can find in almost all of these toolings documentation.
Okay.
And
okay.
internalize them.
And then also learn all of product and all of engineering and all of data science.
Yeah.
And just
small feat.
But through building, that's how we teach it at the AI Engineering Bootcamp, and that's how it's easiest to learn. What should I build? Why? How do I build it? How do I make it better? How do I scale it, etc.? Through building, you can learn a whole lot. Okay, going to throw up conclusions here on the slide for you guys. We saw LangChain 1.0. We saw the switcheroos of some name skis. I want to get to Neil's question here. It's a good one. So, do I just need to throw away all my 0.x implementations and ditch them for these new freshy LangGraph 1.0 agents? Hurry, do this now before the holidays.
No.
Oh,
you can. It should be kind of mostly backwards compatible. Your mileage may vary, so I'm not gonna promise that to you. But I don't think there's a significant rush. If you're already doing what you need to do and the tasks you're trying to complete are being completed, then you don't need to rush to upgrade. Maybe you like one of the new abstractions, or you like one of the new patterns that's specifically facilitated by the newer LangChain. In that case, upgrade. Otherwise, I mean, it's a question as old as time, and there's no better answer than if you don't feel the immediate need to upgrade in order to get access to some brand new feature, then you shouldn't be upgrading. You should only upgrade when you feel pain, and upgrading will remove the pain.
Okay. All right. So your advice was to build, Wiz.
Yeah.
Devamvok and CT are looking for recommendations. I think you just showed some code.
We have that code that we just
on.
looked at is going to be available, or is available on GitHub. It needs to be for LangSmith Deploy to work. LangChain's docs also has a ton of great tutorials.
Yep.
We also have, going back not for 1.0, but from the pattern perspective, many tutorials that you can look at.
Many.
There you go.
Big playlist on YouTube. LangChain, LangGraph. RAG with LangGraph has been sort of a thing that they've been pushing for a while. That's a great place to start. And then finally, last question. If I have the API deployed to LangGraph platform, do I still need a web framework, a Python web framework to deploy? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just clarifying here. Okay.
Yeah,
this isn't here to talk about full stack. This is talk about LangChain today, but I want to just get to that question real quick. Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Wiz. As always, we appreciate your expertise. We'll see you next week. All right, thanks everybody for joining another weekly Wednesday workshop at AI Makerspace. We are on a mission to build the world's leading community for people like you who want to build, ship, and share production LLM applications. Take those prototypes, ship them to production. If you're not yet in the community, come join all the cool, competent folks. We've got 3,000 people in the Discord. We'd love to see you in there. And if you're looking to upskill into agent engineering in 2026, definitely check out our flagship bootcamp, the AI Engineering Bootcamp, cohort 9. We've been doing this for years now, and we've been all in on LangChain for years now. The LangX ecosystem is thoroughly explored. All the newest, the latest and greatest starts in January, and there's a special sale this week through Monday. You can save $1,000 if you get your AI Engineer Challenge built, shipped, and shared. You can go ahead and enroll. And that's it. That's all we got for you today. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next week. Same time, same place. Until then, keep building, shipping, and sharing. We'll do the same. Bye, everybody.